Well, hi there, folks. Welcome to the program. This, of course, is Stinchfield podcast. One of the things that frustrates me to no end, frustrating is an understatement, and that is the cancer industry. I believe it is set up so Big Pharma will not find a cure for cancer. There are billions of dollars in the treatment of cancer, but finding a cure, that would wipe out the cancer industry. So when they talk about health care, what we really have is sick care, and sick care makes them a lot of money. Now, cancer, we've seen an explosion of cancers after the COVID shot and COVID bursting onto the scene. So there is one state, normally I talk about Texas as the model for America. But I'll tell you what, when it comes to cancer research, when it comes to thinking outside the box, Florida may be taking over for Texas, because what they're doing with this innovation fund, a government fund that hands out grants to individual companies, typically smaller than the big pharma companies, to look at everything from prescription, generic, very low-cost medications like ivermectin to treat cancer and funding these studies. Florida's doing what the federal government isn't. Florida's doing what I wish more states would do. So we're going to talk about that today on the program. I'm going to play you some clips from Florida Surgeon General and the First Lady, who has really taken this bull by the horns. That's Ron DeSantis' wife. And we'll go through this. Today's program, of course, is brought to you by the Wellness Company. And I'll tell you, when we talk about cancer, they have a new product out called Shield. This is about preventative. We call it preventative maintenance. That's a car. But for your body, what do you call it? Well, it's preventative medicine, let's say. Shield is fabulous. I want you to check it out. Go to twc.health/grant. Use the promo code GRANT for 10% off. This product is really raising eyebrows amongst those in the health community that says, hey, there are ways to start preventing cancer early on. And this is one of them. twc.health/grant. Use the promo code GRANT. Check that product out, Shield. And as I always pitch, make sure you have one of these prescription medication kits on hand. Speaking of fighting cancer, ivermectin in this kit as well. twc.health/grant. Use that promo code GRANT. All right, with that, let's get the show started.
Uncensored and unapologetic. This is Stinchfield. Here's your host, Grant Stinchfield.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. I want to bring in my good friend, the CEO of the Wellness Company, Peter Galuli, is with us. Peter, great to have you on the program.
Thanks for having me back, Grant.
All right. So you and I have talked a lot about this. Before I get into what First Lady DeSantis is doing in Florida, your thoughts about the problems right now with cancer research, finding a cure, the industry in general?
The industry is kind of rotten to the core, Grant. I mean, we've talked about vaccines over and over and on your show, and I think the audience knows where both of us stand on that subject. But cancer medication is not too different. Believe it or not, chemotherapy is one of the only two classes of drugs out there, the other being vaccines, that doctors can actually be financially incentivized by pharmaceutical companies in order to recommend to patients. And this isn't a knock to chemotherapy as potentially a bad route, but certainly there's not been a lot of innovation in chemotherapy for decades. Furthermore, chemotherapy is a very blunt tool. It not only kills cancer cells, it weakens the immune system, which is crucial for your body's own natural response to cancers. So we're really pursuing cancer, Grant, with these very kind of antiquated techniques and technology. There has not been a lot of new innovation when it comes to cancer therapeutics in decades in the United States. And that's why cancer is pretty much treated as something that just happens to you. You react to it, you go to the doctor, and you just follow what he says blindly, but we don't have great outcomes.
Do you think the lack of innovation is actually by design?
I think so. And I mean, look at all chronic diseases in the United States. I can't think of one that has really been cured in the past few decades. Cancer besides that, right? I mean, heart disease, COPD, the list goes on and on and on. there really seems to be a lack of incentive and motivation to actually cure these diseases versus manage the disease. And that's why we see patients everywhere, especially as you go and get older, on 5, 6, 7 different prescription medications, some to treat the disease, some to treat the side effects of the
Right.
disease. And it just gets worse and worse.
You know, I don't. Maybe I'm oversimplifying this, but when you say this, besides an infection, what have we really figured out a way to cure? You can't cure a common cold. Imagine if they could find a way to cure the common cold. There'd be no cold medicines. There'd be no anything. I mean, what have we cured besides infections? I mean, you got antibiotics that'll get to the heart of it, but we haven't cured anything, I don't think.
You're onto something there, Grant. And I mean, you referenced our medical emergency kit a few moments ago. All of the medications in that medical emergency kit are decades old. These are staples, but they work, and that's really the interesting part about that. We don't see a lot of new innovation from pharmaceuticals today in things that actually work to the degree that those medications do in terms of saving life. They're really just designed to prolong life or manage disease, but not really to reverse it.
Yeah. Well, this innovation fund that Florida has created, let me play a clip from you. For you from Casey DeSantis. This is the First Lady of Florida talking about the Innovation Fund.
This is so important, and that's what we've done in Florida. So it's the Innovation Fund. It is a part of a bigger package of funding. Like I told you, we've done stuff for pediatrics to try to provide more opportunities for kids and some of our big, really well-established and great hospital systems within the state. But yeah, the Innovation Fund is unique. They are people who can apply in Florida primarily to the Department of Health for a grant. We do these grants quarterly, which I think is really important. We don't wait for the fiscal year, right? Because we're at war with cancer. We need to move quickly. So if somebody has a technique, an innovation, a procedure, or what have you, they're able to write a grant application specifically to the Department of Health. If it beat muster, then of course, obviously they'll issue it.
So that sounds like an awful good way to do it from government, which government never really impresses me much, but it sounds a lot quicker than what the FDA and the CDC and Health and Human Services in general is doing.
It absolutely is. And I love the approach that it's kind of open source, right? She said that anybody, individuals or small businesses, can apply here. And certainly if you or a loved one, Grant, has gotten cancer, the first thing you do after the diagnosis is go home and fire up Google, and you spend hours and hours and hours researching all the different alternatives. And look, many of them seem to have some credence, but there is just a lack of research, even on small scales, among these sorts of therapeutics. And that's not to say they don't work, but we just don't have enough data. And everybody's cancer is different. Everybody's lifestyle is different. So you really need to have more information to make informed, educated choices if you want to pursue additional therapeutics beyond what the medical establishment is going to recommend to you.
All right, let me play for you the Attorney General talking about this very same subject.
Announced last week is that we're going to be funding research through the Florida Cancer Innovation Fund that specifically will be targeting generic drugs that for which there may not be a financial incentive for the private sector to make investments in. And one of those that we've heard a lot about in terms of what people are saying in public, really a lot of lay people, some cancer physicians also, is ivermectin and other anti-parasitic drugs too. I mean, it's interesting. I actually had a conversation with Dr. Mattis from Canada over the weekend, and he shared with me his experiences treating thousands of patients. And it's definitely an area that should be investigated further in terms of patients that may benefit from adding, not replacing, but adding something like ivermectin to their chemotherapeutic regimen. Based on, certainly from my conversation here, learning about his experience, it absolutely is something that should be studied further. And we're hoping to be able to study some of that, to fund some of that work through the Florida Cancer Innovation Fund, which is a MAHA initiative.
So a lot to break down there. One, I like the fact that the Surgeon General in Florida is not just poo-pooing the idea of ivermectin. He's not over the top about it either. He's saying we need to study. There could be some opportunities to combine this with some traditional ways of treating cancer. Seems like a reasonable guy. That guy is vilified, though, by the mainstream.
Oh, yeah. He is the liberals' worst nightmare when it comes to healthcare because of his extremely successful policies during the pandemic that led Florida to be one of the most healthy states, despite being one of the least vaccinated states. I mean, no one was masking up here, Grant. We were walking around enjoying the sun and being healthy. But to your point on cancer, look, you promoted the ivermectin mebendazole product that the wellness company offers for a while, and we're big supporters of Dr. William Mackis. He was actually an extension of our board in Canada for some time. We have had a ton of patients come to us and use ivermectin mebendazole for cancer. So many, in fact, that last fall we actually launched a small study about those patients and their outcomes. And we're actually going through the follow-up phase now to track some results of using the product on a daily basis as an adjunct for cancer treatment. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because the survey results aren't all in, but right now, I mean, we're seeing something like 40% of patients reporting positive outcomes or no cancer. And this is using the product in conjunction with their physician's own recommendations. Personally, my mother-in-law has colorectal cancer. She was diagnosed with stage 4 2 years ago. I've had her on ivermectin mebendazole in addition to chemotherapeutic regimens for 2 years now, and she's still with us. And the doctors actually told us point blank that they credit her additional pursuit of medications like this off-label as one of the reasons why she's still alive. And when I hear stories like that, Grant, I got to think that there are just thousands and thousands of lives every single year that could be either saved or prolonged by having access to medications like this. And, the results are just incredible, at least from my perspective.
It's interesting that ivermectin mebendazole product, it's pitched as a parasite cleanse, which clearly these are antiparasitics. The research is now starting to show that these antiparasitics are having a huge effect on cancers, leaving me and others, now I'm not a doctor, but others, to think there may be some connection with parasites and cancer. And if you kill the parasites, that's how you get to the cancer, which is why these parasite cleanses, which I went through this, the mebendazole and ivermectin product that you guys have, I think it's so important and could be a cancer preventative, Peter.
I think that's another very, very interesting topic that we need to be studying, Grant. And look, we should not be surprised that drugs have multiple uses. I mean, some of the most well-selling drugs of all time didn't start with their intended use. Think about things like Viagra. Viagra was not used for erectile dysfunction originally. I believe it was a heart medication. GLP-1 started out as a blood sugar management tool, and now they've had wide application for use of weight loss. And I wouldn't be surprised if we learn over the next couple of years that ivermectin mebendazole and other antiparasitics actually are a very effective treatment against cancer. And look, they do, for parasites, they act by disrupting the metabolic pathways that allow parasites to feed, and it kills them. Cancer is similar in many ways to a parasite. It feeds on blood sugar and other nutrients from the body, and that allows the cells to spread and multiply uncontrollably. And it looks like there is a plausible biological reason why something like an antiparasitic drug might disrupt these abnormal cells' ability to feed and grow.
Really amazing and on the cutting edge. And I would say that, the wellness company and your folks and all your doctors' willingness to talk about this is really, one, it's bold because of the heat that you all take for this. But I think it's also moving the conversation in the right direction. And then, you've got people like Dr. Peter McCullough going on. He was on Real America's Voice. He was on Sunrise. Let me play this for you.
We believe that pandemic years will increase cancers of almost all sorts. The current data from the National Center for Cancer in the United States is just from 2022 data. So we imagine when 2023 and those roll in, the numbers will go up. The technology you described is very exciting. Remember, so many solid organ cancers like lung, kidney, pancreas, they're potentially curable if caught early, but we rely on advanced imaging to detect them. It's so good to see this coming together. Of course, now there are multiple trials testing, widely available ivermectin and mebendazole in combination, adding on to conventional treatments to reduce the recurrence and potentially cure cancer.
All right. One of the things that I like to do is offer up solutions. So we talked about ivermectin and mebendazole, which is available at the Wellness Company. Just go to twc.health/grant and use the promo code GRANT. You also have a product called Shield, which is a preventative, what would you call it, a supplement?
Yeah, exactly. So Shield is a very interesting story, and I know you have Dr. Victory on the show quite often, and she can tell it much more in depth than I can because she actually created this product. But Dr. Victory, unfortunately, a couple of years ago, came down with a breast cancer diagnosis. And it was very interesting how that experience actually happened to her. She was in for a routine mammogram. They found an abnormal mass. The doctor's recommendation was to wait 6 months to a year and get a new screening. Kelly said no way and went straight to a biopsy and confirmed that it was cancer. If she had waited, Grant, she might have died. But she was, within a week's time, straight to the surgeon to get the mass removed. She went through, I think, 24 or 25 pretty intensive rounds of radiation, and then she faced a choice, like many people who have cancer do, of whether to do chemotherapy or whether to take her fate into her own hands. And she was looking at chemotherapy, and for those reasons that I mentioned at the top of the show, was very unsettled by the fact that chemotherapy works to really neutralize the body's own immune defenses. Our immune system, Grant, is our number one defense against cancer. Today, I have cancer in my body. You have cancer in your body. Everyone who's listening has cancerous cells in their body. But our immune system is able to identify and dispose of those cancer cells safely. That's one of the key functions of the immune system. So Dr. Victory said, well, instead of going with something like chemotherapy that might actually harm the body's ability to recognize and dispose of cancerous cells, she did extensive research and identified a dozen different natural compounds that really help to optimize the body's immune system and metabolic pathways that are used to identify and destroy cancerous cells. And that's how we got to Shield. So rather than getting a giant plate full of 12 different supplements every day, we're able to combine all of these ingredients into a soft gel that you take every day. And we created a hot cocoa mix that actually contains 6 different supplements in dosages that match the efficacious dose that would really help the immune system strengthen itself. So the intent with this product, Grant, is to actually use as a preventative daily supplement in order to make sure that your body is as well equipped as it can through the stresses of daily life to best handle any cancer cells as they may appear.
Yeah. Amazing stuff, and people are saying such great things about it. So that product is Shield, and again, it's available at twc.health/grant, and use the promo code GRANT. Now, some of the interesting things about research of cancer, I don't know if you know this guy, Peter, Patrick Soon-Shiong. He is I don't know if he's a billionaire, but he may be. He bought the LA Times. He's tried to kind of massage that in the correct direction. By no means is the LA Times a friend of conservatives, but he's like trying to move it slowly in the right direction. He's an interesting character. He's been outspoken about COVID, and he went on with Megyn Kelly, and he said this about cancer and something that we have in our system. I'd be curious to get your thoughts to see if you've even heard about this. Listen.
We have in our body a gene called P53 that actually prevents cancer from occurring. Elephants have 8 P53s. That's why elephants don't get cancer.
Wow. Did not know that.
So you could be an elephant and you'd be fine. Guess what COVID does? It knocks down P53.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, no.
And we're about to publish that. Dr. Carlos Cardone and I have done the work. It knocks down P53, and if you have any latency, and so therefore it's what I consider no different from HPV, which causes cancer with the latent period of once you have HPV, 5-10 years. Now we are seeing for the first time in America head and neck cancer from HPV exceeding that of cervical cancer.
Oh.
So I just tweeted about 4, 5, now 6 patients with head and neck cancer in our clinic. And we're about to start now a randomized trial in head and neck cancer, where we're getting responses 6 out of 6.
I forgot that he's a doctor too, but so this idea of P53, and he said something interesting, because this is something that I have always said. Look, I'm a huge critic, as you know, of the COVID shot, but I do think there's a valid argument that we need to really figure out: is it COVID and the spike, or is it the shot and the spike? Is it a combination of the spike? Is it just the spike? A lot of this hasn't really been figured out. Like, COVID could be the driver, and because the shot mimics the COVID, it just makes matters absolutely worse. But COVID could be a real culprit here as well. And he said COVID causes the decrease of this P53, which then I would imagine the shot would then just accelerate that. Your thoughts on my take?
I think your take is absolutely correct, and I think the doctor was being a little politically correct there in his conversation with Megyn Kelly. Think about it, Grant. The shots contain spike protein, mRNA, in concentrations millions, if not more, than a COVID infection, a regular COVID infection. The purpose of the mRNA is actually to get into your cells. That's how viruses replicate. And theoretically, to help your cells then feel infected and be able to attack the virus. Now, we know that that is not actually what played out with the COVID shots, as they really didn't help your body combat COVID, because, frankly, the virus mutated way too fast for them to be able to make a shot that actually matches the current strain. Yet, we see tens or hundreds of millions of Americans that took these shots, whether knowingly knowing the risk or they were coerced or tricked about it. But either way, that's the fact. And it should be no surprise that because the shots actually involve mRNA, which can affect the own gene expression of your DNA, that it could downregulate one of these genes that is used to control the body's ability to fight cancer. So I think for me, the first step is, if you got a shot, if you were infected with COVID, if you even are worried about being exposed to COVID and never got a shot, do a spike protein detox, or at least go get a blood test and see what your spike antibody levels are. Because you might find, and we've seen it before, that people who were never exposed or got a shot actually had very high spike protein levels just from ambient exposure to the rest of us.
That's the spike detox that you guys have right there.
That's the spike detox. Yeah, Dr. McCullough has extensively tested that and shown over and over again in clinic of this ability of that supplement to reduce the spike antibodies in blood tests down to levels that barely register on the scale. It's quite remarkable. And then after that, I think you need to be doing things like taking a shield, boosting your immune system.
Mm-hmm. All of these things will keep you healthy, and everything's recommended, by the doctors that I trust. You mentioned Dr. Victory, Dr. McCullough, and so many others. All talk about these things as really should be used as daily supplements. The spike detox as well. We've talked at length about that with Dr. McCullough. Let me play one last clip for you as we kind of hail Florida for doing the things that I wish the federal government would do and other states would do. Check out what they found with candy bars, with this study. And I think this gets into the realm of cancer and when we're not eating healthy, what happens. But take a listen.
Through independent testing conducted by certified laboratories, the Florida Department of Health tested 46 different candy brands from 10 different companies. Of those, 33 were traditional, well-known candies, brands that we grew up with, things like Three Musketeers and Snickers and Skittles and Nerds and Kit Kats and Jolly Ranchers. In 26 of the 33 traditional candy brands tested, arsenic was detected at elevated levels. These levels are problematic when evaluated over the course of a year, and this is where the distinction is so crucially important. The concern here is not necessarily about one single piece of candy on one single day. The concern is when these products are consumed, as they realistically are, repeatedly over time, exposure can exceed what the Department of Health has determined to be safe annual allotment for arsenic. And here's why the context really matters. Take Nerds, for example. Yes, my daughter really likes Nerds. According to the department's analysis, consuming more than 96 Nerds, the small granular pieces of Nerds in a year, exceeds what is considered a safe annual arsenic exposure for children. But 96 Nerds, as we well know, is not typically what comes in a box. When you think about it, a typical smaller box can contain about 2,000. If you get one of those big boxes that you get like a movie theater, that's about 8,000 Nerds. Asking families to stop at 96 pieces over a year is not realistic when it's viewed against how the product is packaged, marketed, and then consumed.
Peter, you take, I don't know if anybody else has had Nerds. I have had Nerds. I've got a 16-year-old. You take a handful, you get 96 Nerds in your handful. I mean, over the course of a year, and it exceeds the arsenic levels, nobody's talking about this.
It's interesting. And if you look at any, food nutrition facts, you see at the bottom of the nutrition labels that long list of other ingredients that I think fall below the 1 or 2% threshold for having it broken out as an actual tabulated item on those nutrition facts. Casey brings up a very interesting point, Grant, which is that companies are allowed to put other ingredients in their products or test even in some of these unsafe things like arsenic, and as long as it falls below a certain threshold, but keep in mind that threshold is not zero, it never is zero, but as long as it falls below that threshold, they have a approved product to sell. But nobody's thinking about, okay, if every product is doing this and you're eating all of this stuff every day or on a daily basis, it cannot just be Nerds. I mean, no one's on a straight Nerds diet, but if it's in 12 different foods, some of which are common, maybe foods that are even considered healthy, that's going to stack up over time. And I think she brings up a very valid point that we need to be looking at. And I wish RFK and HHS would also start a nationwide investigation.
Yeah. They really do, because our kids down this stuff, and adults too. But it's the kids I'm looking to protect. Adults, you can make decisions for yourselves. Kids, not as much. Now, parents need to be involved in all of this, but how are you going to stop your kids from eating some Nerds if they go over to a friend's house? And it's just to think of what's in some of these things. Sugar's bad enough, but to get arsenic levels is crazy. Peter Gillooly, as always, it's so great to have you on the program. I'm so grateful for the Wellness Company, your partnership with me, and all you guys do for making America healthy. And we appreciate you.
Appreciate you too, Grant. You rock.
All right, absolutely. Thank you, buddy. And folks, let me remind you, for everything that we talked about today on the program, you can go to twc.health/Grant. Use the promo code GRANT for 10% off. So we had the spike protein. We had Shield is the cancer preventative medication, which is really important. And then the ivermectin and mebendazole, that's the parasite cleanse that I've been such a proponent of from a parasite cleanse perspective. And now I'm learning that, boy, this could be a cancer preventative and even helping cure cancer as well. We're going to see what the research comes back with on all that as more of it is conducted. But all of these products on the forefront, if you want to stay healthy, just go peruse the website, twc.health/Grant. Use the promo code GRANT for 10% off. We'll see you on the Real America's Voice show tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for watching, everybody.